Number one, people care a lot less than I had anticipated or made out to be. There's something called the spotlight effect, where we believe that other people are paying more attention to us than they really are. It's that idea that, if you see a person trip, they usually look around to see if anybody saw them. That
Yes.
drive, right? That is, it's not real. People are not paying that much attention, and it really is less about me. So number one would be not about me. Most of other people's reactions has nothing to do with me. Number two, I wish I'd learned better boundaries. I had spent a great deal of time, people pleasing might be too strong of a word, but I had spent a great deal of time compromising until I felt a friction. And if I had just kept and maintained those boundaries to begin with, less friction, less destroyed relationships. Third
Yeah.
leadership lesson I wish I'd learned earlier would be to lead from a place of purpose rather than driven by fog. I don't know if you're familiar with the acronym FOG. It comes from recovery circles: fear, obligation, guilt. Too often times, fear, obligation, and guilt can be the motivator to do something. And too oftentimes in my youth and my starting leadership journey, I was doing things out of fog rather than connected to my purpose and my values. Think about the number of times that you called your mom when you didn't feel like calling your mom, but you knew that you had to, that fear, obligation, or guilt, say, I gotta call my mom, right? Versus like having a purpose or a value driven approach where I want to call my mom because I want to maintain connection. I want to honor those who have like supported me in my life. That's a different, like it's two different places. I would say to
Yeah.
anybody listening, if you don't wait until they're gone to have that
Yes.
sense, because there is a truth to that connection. And I watched many people who have said, I wish I had, versus
Mm.
people that, like, I feel very connected to both my parents. I feel blessed, and we've become friends as adults, and we have a lot of
Yes.
fun adventures together. So I force myself to say, not about me, 10 times before I get up and speak, before I get up and lead that meeting, before I get up and do. Not about me, not about me, not about me. So that's my habit, 10 times. The other is when it's a difficult conversation or an intense interaction, and I have the moment, I literally will in my head just keep saying, not about me, not about me, not about me, and then respond. So I just literally turn it into a mantra and try to see what's happening from a different perspective. Now, Victor's profound quote there: between stimulus and response, there's a gap, and in that gap is an opportunity for us to make a choice. We value quick action, like we kind of judge our leadership based on how quickly we can react to the situation. There's so much wisdom and so much more leadership shown when there's a pause where a choice is made and we respond rather than react. And in that pause is where I'm doing my mantra, not about me, not about me, to orientate my mind to be thinking about, well, what else could this be? What else could be going on in that person's life? Why are they giving that sour face while I'm talking? Or why are they
Yeah.
responding that way? That gives me the possibility of looking at the situation differently. I go into this in my book a little bit about like the need as a leader to have presence.
Hmm.
Presence is what commands the room. It's what causes people to lean in to your leadership. I can make it not about me, but I can turn my focus outward and look at what could be going on for that person and not be in a defensive or reactive state. I have a greater presence that's going to cause people to lean in and take what I say at a higher value. I would say is it gives an opening for a deeper relationship, right? Because I'm not cutting that person off. When I react to somebody else's stimulus, it can trigger a shadow part of me that is maybe a manipulator, maybe it's a quick to cut you off, maybe I'm going to put you down before you can put me down.
Yeah.
Knowing what your shadow is important, but if I make sure that I'm going into a not about me state, I'm less likely to go into a shadow and do something that's going to make what could have been an opportunity for healing into something volatile and destructive. So I would invite anybody listening to make it your own, whatever the phrase is that's going to work. There is confirmation
Yeah.
bias, there is the repetition. For me, honestly, it's rooted in an experience I had at an ice cream parlor. Believe it or not, I'd waited in line for a super long time for my turn to get my ice cream, and there were four people working behind the counter. And when it finally, the person turned to me and just gave me, "What do you want?" And I was like, dude, I'm in an ice cream store. Like, this is a moment of joy. I finally have a chance, and you're giving me this attitude. What did I do to you? And like, I heard in my brain, this has nothing to do with me. This is not about me.
Yeah.
This person is having a bad day. And so when I say not about me, I literally go back to that moment of like, this person's attitude towards me has nothing to do with me. They don't want to be
Yeah.
here today. They had a bad experience. I don't know what it is. So for me, that mantra does work because it takes me back to that moment of my ice cream. I did get the ice cream. It was delicious. Just had to deal with a surly customer service person. But now when I say not about me, it just reminds me, oh, this person's reaction has nothing to do with me. There is something, right? Like there's some, I'm obviously a trigger. I'm obviously the stimulus. And we could say like my role is not to fix. I can choose a different path. I went through a period of like high consumption of anything of self-development, right? And I think it was in the
Yeah.
midst there. I don't remember all four. Impeccable with your word is one of them. But one of the other ones is don't take things personally. That really is the root of it. This person's response to me is not personal. That doesn't mean that I'm not impacting and I'm not sparking or triggering some sort of interaction here. It's not personal if that person is being rude to me. If anything, it's a more of a reflection of them. So my friend worked at a cafe Gratitude in the Bay Area, and it was meant to be a place where you went and had a great deal of appreciation. And as part of the training to work there, all employees were taught to see difficult interactions, whether a customer got upset or they got upset at each other, to go, we have an opportunity. They were literally trained to respond to a negative stimulus with, oh, here's an opportunity to change the mindset about it. And that is part of it. So not taking things personally, seeing this as an opportunity, changing my role from being like victim to being like a potential supporter of this person in whatever situation that they've now found themselves in. Salvatore's not type A, he's type triple A because I was really high strung, right? And as a
Yeah.
means of overcoming that, I was always trying to be super accommodating to everybody else, trying to create more space, trying not to get upset that you're smoking in my space or that you just threw trash on the floor or whatever it was. And through period of like several teachers and several different learnings, I realized that I don't need to wait until I'm triggered to have a response. I can know what my boundaries are and I can reinforce those boundaries in a polite way before I have to and reinforce it in a darker way. I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. I basically had roommates up until COVID. COVID was the first time I actually lived by myself, and what a wow! I didn't realize what a difference that makes when I can just leave my dishes in the sink and not worry about picking them up, right? But there was a lack of consideration from my roommate to leave dishes in the sink or something like that. And rather than telling my roommate that was a problem, I would let it go. I would let it go. And then the floor wasn't clean, the trash wasn't taken, little things. And until I would explode. And it would be this like unhelpful, unhealing exchange between me and my roommate where I would just want to leave. I'm done. I don't even, there's nothing I can do here. I'm done. And then I lived with somebody and we had boundaries about what was my responsibility and what were the obligations. No more friction. None of this passive aggressive behavior that I couldn't seem to control because it was all on paper. It was all understood. So that experience with that roommate changed and helped me start going into situations and thinking through what are my agreements with myself, with my colleagues, with this project, so that I know when those boundaries have been crossed. When I was just in getting out of college, I didn't have a lot of boundaries. So I was creating great, with for other people, which was not helpful. And somebody gave me the keen advice when she asked me, I think it was about a restaurant, like, what kind of food do you want? And I said, I'm open to anything. She goes, no, I need to know your no before I can trust your yes. And I was like, wow. Because if I don't tell where my boundary is, they don't know how far they can push me. I may appear to go along with her when that's not helpful to either one of us. It's going to bite us both in the butt. I would say it often happens, well, okay, two situations. One is when a person has gone from a team member to team lead and they're not clear on how to reorient those relationships. So they will start allowing certain people that they have a relationship to get away with certain behaviors that are not supportive of the overall team. That's number one. The second is when it's a new manager, new as in their first time to direct or manage other people. I judge that oftentimes new managers take on the role of a parent, and there's a big difference between parenting and managing. And a lot of people who
Yeah.
haven't had a good example or haven't seen a pathway or mentored, they might take on that role of a parent. Manager needs to set boundaries to ensure the work and the efficiency is followed. As a leader, you're not always going to get the choice. There's a terminology in inclusion work where you call in or call out. Calling in is where you take the conversation offline, call them into your circle, explain it one on one. Calling out is when it is to the benefit of the entire group for you to share the awareness and surface it in the entire group. So I would put it in that same category. As a manager, is it beneficial for the entire team to understand where the boundaries are? Or is it necessarily just to explain to that one person where it is so that the behavior stops? If I could do a little self-disclosure, part of my search, my nomadic life, was a search for purpose. For probably the first 2 years after college, as I traveled the globe, I would ask everybody that I met, like, what gets you out of bed? Finally, one person said, warm Vogel toast. And I was just like, that's just too easy. And it changed, it reoriented my mind around what I was trying to find as purpose in life to make it more practical to the moment. Like in this moment, what is my purpose? Where am I finding my joy? How am I finding? It was an exercise on the retreat where we identified our life mission. And the idea being whatever the deepest wound of our childhood, healing that wound is one of our missions in life. And so creating, for me, creating a world of acceptance. As a child, I didn't feel like I belonged. I grew up in Kansas. I felt like I was a square peg in a round hole. Salvatore, nobody could say my name. I just didn't feel like I belonged. So I wanted to create a world where everybody felt like they belonged. I wanted to create a world of acceptance where people felt their place at the table, felt empowered to use their voice in any setting. That was what surfaced from doing that mission work. And that helped me define my purpose in life. And my purpose is to help leaders use their voice to achieve, inspire, connect with other people. Too many of us are struggling in life, struggling to find our place or struggling to move ahead. And in that struggle, bumping up against each other, and these bumps and friction points become splinters that become stories, that become beliefs that suddenly we have to unpack. Those splinters from our life experiences as we bump along with each other need to be healed. Like we need an opportunity for somebody to hold the mirror up or to offer a different response so that we can look at it differently, release that story, create a new story, one in which we have
Mm.
more resourcefulness, more agility, more ability to be present with one another. Whenever anybody else tries to control me, I immediately bristle. I did more inward work on it and realized it's because I feel a lack of control. So I want to control. Then I resent somebody else taking control or being in control. And it's this downward spiral that doesn't lead to anything generative. And when I pivot to what do I have control over, how am I in control of my life? How do I exercise control? It again turns it into a not about me. This is that person. Perhaps they're dealing with their own control issues, whatever it is, but I don't need to respond. I will say I healed that part of me that would react in a trigger to the trigger in a negative way. After 20 years of coaching leaders on how to communicate their vision and motivate teams, I put all of that into a book called Clear and Compelling. And I myself am an introvert, and I've been working primarily with data-driven scientists, analysts, financial advisors, people that work with numbers and data, who find themselves having to lead a team or take their vision forward. And most public speaking training, communication training, is for the extrovert. It doesn't really identify how to work for our minds, how to put it out there. So I've put all of this into the book, Clear and Compelling. In September, it will be released on Amazon. You can go right now to clearandcompellingplaybook.com. You can sign up to be notified when it gets released, and you get access to the whole resource library, including a chapter from the book.